Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Janoah Agudelo. We told you we got a special episode today, a 2-round NFL mock draft. It's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. There's a lot of time till the draft, but, it's very important that we get started on this. Janoah, how you doing today, my man?
Yo, Dwee Nation, it's draft season, it's off season, man. This is one of the funnest times of the off season where we get ready to see, who could be the next, super team, the next additions to any, new teams, trying to look for a championship, Justin. Stacked quarterback class. Can't wait to get on this. I can't wait to see what you think about it, Justin. Let's get it on, Dwee Nation.
Yes, and I will say, though, right before we start, we are going to do a quick Dween Sports Daily News because, luckily last night, I believe around 10 p.m., the Cincinnati Bengals, they franchise tagged T. Higgins. We saw it coming. It happens. He's going to be around another year in Seattle at least. They give him that money. I think he's going to be making like around $21 million. So he doesn't get a long-term deal, which he probably wanted, but he gets franchise tagged. We're going to probably view him in the same light as he's been in the last couple of years. He's kind of that, wide receiver 15 range, maybe. We'll dig into that more if we see, Tyler Boyd leave and other stuff like that if they draft a tight end. So that's some pretty big news. Another huge, league-wide important news that came out yesterday. The NFL is expanding their cap space for each team by just about $30 million, which changes the game for just about every team. There's only 3 teams now under the that are in the negatives. I believe it's the Saints and the Bills and one other team. And then teams like the Texans and the Commanders and the Patriots, I think, they have over $100 million. So that completely alters a lot of things. At first I was like, as a Texans fan, just thinking, who could they bring in? Oh, they only have probably enough to, spin big on one big player and then get, a handful of other guys. Now they definitely can get, a couple pieces that are pretty, well known. What are your thoughts on T. Higgins staying and also with the cap space change?
Yeah, first, Justin, I love what's going to go down in Cincinnati. They're going to be able to keep their star number 2 receiver in T. Higgins. They'll have Jamar Chase. And if they can just get an offensive line, Justin, that's definitely what I'm going to get into if we get into the Bengals today during our mock draft. They need an offensive line. But now that they have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, absolutely love them. They can have Joe Burrow healthy. They will be a top team, a top contender to knock off the Chiefs. And looking at to the cap space, Justin, I love it. You mentioned my Texans. If we can get Saquon Barkley and Mike Evans, I would just be happy as a Texans fan. I would just live life having CJ Stroud already. But this is going to help out many other teams, Justin. Now we can look at things potentially like a super team. We've never really had an NFL super team, like that, it's like the Warriors, like in basketball. So maybe something like that can happen, make the league interesting. But, I love the cap space, as the NFL grows year in and year out, there's the room for cap space is always going to improve. And so that's just a good sign, Justin, that our sport is being very successful and we have a bright future ahead of us for years and years to come, Justin.
Most definitely. And the super team concept is a very interesting one because now, a team like the Chiefs, they have money to bring in a big name wide receiver. I know we've been talking about Mike Evans as a possible Texan, but I don't know. The grass is pretty green in Kansas City, and now they have the money to pay up for just about anybody. So, very big for the NFL. It makes it more interesting and more exciting. And so, yeah, and that's going to be used and very impactful at this free agency period in a couple weeks. But past that, we're diving into the draft. It's a 2-round mock draft, so we got a lot to cover, but a lot that you guys need to know. And I'm just so excited to get it started. I'm going to be, the odd guy. I'm picking from, 1, 3, etc. all the way down. And Janoah's going to be our even guy. We're going to do our picks. We're going to talk about it. And then, yeah, you guys will hear it out. So let's get this started. Let's move it over to the draft page. We're working with PFF's draft simulator. And let's get it started. We're going to do all the teams, 2 rounds, and we'll enter the draft. Wow, so we got it started. The Bears are number 1. It's been a discussion. They've always discussed is Fields going to be the answer for them? Is is should they trade it away and get some more draft picks? We know they traded the first overall pick last year. I don't think they do that this year, and I'm gonna go get this started with Caleb Williams. I don't think people should overthink it too much. He is just phenomenal. If you're getting compared to Patrick Mahomes, you're doing a lot right. And I think that he's not Patrick Mahomes. Let's get that, first out.
Yeah.
That it's just a lofty, expectation put on him and a prediction and comparison. But he just has that, that he can take over a game. And I think that, maybe day one, a guy like Drake May might be a better quarterback just because he just has it more, right there together. But I think Caleb Williams' potential is just, otherworldly. So, yeah, I got Caleb Williams, 1 to Chicago. Janoah, tell me what you got for the number 2 pick.
Okay, Justin, I'm looking at a couple things here. When you look at Washington, I do think they trade back, but since this is our first mock draft, let's just pick it all the way through. When you look at the quarterback position in Washington, Justin, Sam Howell, he's not bad. I think if you can get a good team around him, maybe you can win the division or make a run against the Cowboys or Eagles. Justin, I'm looking at this draft board. I would love to pick Jayden Daniels. I love the reigning Heisman winner. I also love Bo Nix. So a couple quarterbacks off the bat besides Caleb Williams. I love Bo Nix. I think he reminds me of Herbert. I know they wore the same number in college and they went to the same college. I like Bo Nix. So let's just keep it short here. Let's just go Drake May, Justin, just for the sake of it. Since this is the first mock draft, we might do a couple more before April or May. Isn't it May, Justin? I believe it might be in
late April.
Late April. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, we'll get Drake May for now. I know I'll change my mind going forward, probably.
I know you were talking about Jayden Daniels and Bo Nix, but I like your pick with May. I think he's just kind of he has that prototypical build. Which, people were talking about last year. They were like, they thought Bryce Young might be the best, but CJ Stroud had that, prototypical, quarterback build, and it worked out. And I'm kind of, even though the last 2 UNC quarterbacks that have come out in the NFL haven't been, super exciting with Sam Howell and Mitch Trubisky, I think Drake May he's clearly the best of those 3, and I like that pick. So yeah, so we're moving to 3. And I think there's a lot to discuss here. They could go quarterback, which they most definitely need, but would dropping a quarterback into the Patriots team, would that just set him up for failure, whoever it is? But also, quarterback is just the most important position. And through our research, I don't know if I could put Jayden Daniels at 3rd overall. It's close. Quarterback, the advantage of having a quarterback is very important, and they have the boost, especially when teams aren't looking for them. And so that's going to lead me to picking Jayden Daniels at 3. I have him going to the Patriots. It's a new era. Gerard Mayo, he's been interviewed, and he's come out and said, kind of like quarterback is definitely something they're going to address this offseason. And I think they go with Jayden Daniels. Now they do have over $100 million in cap space for maybe throwing some money at Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson. But I think they might, it's not super attractive to go to New England. They have the 3rd overall pick, and they're going to get Jayden Daniels from LSU, the Heisman winner.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's our thoughts there. You're at number 4 now, Janoah.
Okay, looking at number 4, the Cardinals. I just honestly, Justin, first I must say I feel like this draft there's going to be a lot of trading back and forth. I just feel it in the first round. However, for the Cardinals, okay, let's just real quick. They have Kyler Murray. They have a pretty decent defense. But Justin, I think they did trade away Isaiah Simmons this year, did they not? It was one of their, I guess, cornerstones in defense. So we look at the Cardinals. They do need an edge, all right? Let's see what we're looking at edge here. It's not too attractive. So maybe I do look, as much as I want to get a wide receiver for Kyler Murray, I'm just feeling defense here, Justin. So if I look down the line here, I'm going to go. Now, we can always go offensive line here, but I'm going to go with Laiatu Latu, defensive lineman from UCLA. We're going to go. Look, I get it. This is a little bit of a reach, a stretch. But you got to understand now, the Cardinals, they have a solid coach, I feel like, with Jonathan Gannon. So I feel as if maybe just feel like as if maybe they need a spark defensively. So I do like that Cardinals offense a little bit going into next year. They just really need to work on that defense to stop, Seattle, San Francisco, and the Rams who have Puka and Cooper Kupp and Kyron. So, it starts off with getting a DN in the fourth pick with the fourth pick overall, Justin.
You come out with a spicy take you did over Maserati Marv. They have Hollywood as a free agent. They need some receivers, but I like it. This is what mock drafts are for. I'm excited. Yeah, Latu, he played very well this past season for UCLA. I am a little concerned about Latu. He years ago had a pretty has a pretty bad history of injuries, but it just came out and it was absolutely phenomenal. Guys, if you want to check out how good he was, look at how he played against USC this past season. So Latu in a crazy move. And as you mentioned, trades are going to be I think trades are going to be busy this year, and there's a chance if the Cardinals think they could get him a little later, they could trade back for sure. But I like that. They definitely need edge rushers. So now moving to the Chargers, I had kind of Brock Bowers penciled in here, but now that Maserati Marv is on the clock, I cannot let him pass. Just a generational talent, I think, and with Mike Williams having a lot of cap space taken up, and Keenan Allen getting older, and maybe Quinn Johnson already being a bust, I think they go Maserati Marv if they get the opportunity to.
How fun would that be, Justin, to see Herbert and Marvin Harrison Jr.? I mean, fantasy gold potentially, for sure. Definitely many leagues will be won if that would happen, Justin. I would love to see it.
He'd just about clearly be the one-on-one in Dynasty League drafts if he goes here. And it's a big change. If he goes at 6, I don't love him as much, but he still – anywhere Marvin Harrison's going, it's going to be a good spot. But the Chargers, especially with Justin Herbert there.
Absolutely.
All right, now we're moving to 6. The Giants, they have a lot of glaring needs. Where do they address?
Justin, first let me ask you this. Do you think the Giants go another year with Daniel Jones? This will help me select for this first mock draft.
I do think they stick with Daniel Jones for one more year. They paid him the big bucks last offseason, and to jump off the boat really fast. He was kind of injured throughout the year this past year, and I think they'll give him one more shot.
Okay. So since you said that, they picked Kayvon Thibodeau, was it 2 years ago?
They did.
So I think they go a little bit of an offensive route. Now, there's 2 picks that I really like here. I like Malik Neighbors out of LSU, wide receiver. And I do like the offensive lineman right here. What was his name, Justin? I was just looking at him for...
There's Joe Alt from Notre Dame. There's
Joe Alt. There you go. Yes. Joe Alt. This guy is going to be pretty good. I've seen actually some clips on him on Instagram a couple of days ago. So seems pretty decent. I think that with the Giants, Justin, they're an organization that doesn't really like to pick like the most flashiest players. Like, yes, they picked Saquon years ago, but like ever since then, they're really just draft whoever. And sometimes they come out to be good. Sometimes it is what it is. It's very questionable with the Giants. They picked Daniel Jones and we were just like, what? I know there was different GMs then, but I feel like it still carries over. So I think they're going to get some random O-lineman, but I'm just going to go with the safe pick and get Joe Alt.
Joe Alt. Definitely.
Yeah, Joe Alt. They'll just get a lineman. I'm not really sure, with the Giants, what their plans are with Daniel Jones. If they could just, be, up front at first and like, we're not going forward with Daniel Jones. I would have loved to say maybe a Bo Nix. Maybe, you did say Jaden Daniels got picked. So a Bo Nix or maybe Penix. I don't think any other quarterback goes past it if,
AJ McCarthy's out there.
Yeah, I'm not. One last thing I would say though, if Jordan Travis didn't get hurt, Justin, he would probably be going in the first round. But that's yeah.
He's definitely a baller. Okay, well you go Joe Alt. I'll give you my 2 cents on that. Joe Alt to me is a day one starter, especially for the Giants. The thing that kind of I'm trying to wrap around my mind who they could go for. They definitely need a wide receiver, so it was between Alt and Neighbors. Same here on that thought. But they've dived in on Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal in the past handful of drafts, and it hasn't really panned out. I feel like they might try a different direction just because they've tried that. And I mean, Andrew Thomas is good. He was just hurt last year, but Evan Neal in his rookie season didn't really play great. But Joe Alt, is set and forget it starter. Hopefully they have some money to address wide receiver in free agency or in like the second round with a plethora of guys that are in this draft. So yeah, all right, on to pick 7. We got the Titans. They need O-line help too. They also need wide receiver help, and I think they go with Rome Odunze from Washington. Just has such a versatile skill set. They have Hawkins. He's old. Treylon Burks hasn't panned out yet. I think Rome Odunze kind of offers them a new edge and gives Will Levis another option in this offense. Now that I think, with Brian Callahan, they were pass happy in Cincinnati. And so I think, he's going to want to pass it more, especially with Derrick Henry probably leaving. And so I like Roma Dunze from Washington, an absolute baller. He's going to Tennessee.
Wow. Okay. Over Neighbors. You know what? That could be a good pick. That could be, these wide receivers, Justin, as well in this draft is going to be crazy good. I cannot wait to see how they turn out.
Definitely. All right. Well, hey, you're up now at 8 with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
They have
all right.
number of things to find out.
Well, Justin, honestly, if I'm Raheem Morris and I want to start this year off with no problems, let's get our quarterback, okay? Let's go, Justin, with Bo Nix to Atlanta. Let's get things shaken up. We have Raheem Morris. We have, Drake London, who's a pretty good wide receiver. Kyle Pitts, if he can get someone to get the ball to him, he could be a top 5 tight end. And, Bijan and Algier and there's so many different, ways this Falcons team could be very fun offensively. Let's get our quarterback to get everybody the ball. Raheem Morris, he's had history with, being a part of McVay's team. He's learned from when McVay had guys like Jared Goff and Matt Stafford. These guys are like pocket passers, which Bo Nix so happens to be, Justin. So let's get Bo Nix to the ATL and let's get, that NFC South division very competitive.
Yeah, I will say, Bo Nix is a very interesting pick there. He definitely seems like a McVay system type of guy. Mm-hmm. I'm solidly high on JJ, so I probably would have taken JJ there or gone defense. It also depends if they go Justin Fields in free agency and trade for him. That would change probably their minds of where they go in the first round. But as it stands right now, they need a quarterback. They go Bo Nix, who played very well for Oregon this past year. Mm-hmm. And now we're at Chicago at 9. We picked Caleb Williams for them earlier. They have DJ Moore. Darnell Mooney is a free agent. Cole Kmet's there. I think they go Malik Neighbors out of LSU, absolute stud. Kind of get that a 1-2 punch, getting Caleb Williams and have Malik Neighbors, and they already have DJ Moore. That offense will be very interesting. Hopefully, Chicago's new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron can utilize them to their talents, their many talents. So yeah, Malik Neighbors. He's going to be the next guy in Chicago from here. Now we're at number 10 with the Jets. And we got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They're coming in. Who do they pick, Janoah?
Justin, I'm so glad I picked this one. It just occurred to me that the Jets don't really have a good tight end. Am I right or wrong here?
They got Conklin and Uzama. CJ Uzama.
See, they have done nothing. So when you look at the Jets, you're going to get Aaron Rodgers back. We talked about last episode about Breece Hall, who's going to be a stud. You have Garrett Wilson, who can be your next Devontae Adams. So Justin, let's get a tight end. Let's get the guy who's been dominating college football at the tight end position for the last 3 to 4 years. Let's go at the guy out of Georgia, Brock Bowers. This is going to be so much fun to watch with Aaron Rodgers. He hasn't really had a great tight end in most of his career historically. Aaron Rodgers, he had like Jermichael Finley, he had Tunyon. He's never really had a solid, dominant tight end. He's had some good ones in his MVP years in Green Bay, but not anyone as potentially as Brock Bowers could be. Justin, Brock Bowers, he gives me a little bit of Mark Andrew vibes. He kind of runs like him, so an NFL comparison would be Brock Bowers or to Mark Andrews. If I had to make one, Justin.
That is a lofty comparison there. And Brock Bowers, any team he's going to be an amazing addition. I am interested, though, that they do need offensive line help with the guys like Olu Fashanu there, or Talise Fuaga. But, hey, Brock Bowers has excellent grades in blocking, and so could really still be a great blocker, and then obviously as a catch-and-run guy. So, yeah, Brock Bowers at 10 to the Jets. Now we're at Minnesota. And Minnesota, I think if they don't get Kirk Cousins back in the building, they will go quarterback in the draft. And the thing that just it's eating at me is that they seem like they're just fighting against the cap right now. They got to pay Justin Jefferson. Are they going to keep Danielle Hunter? Are they going to re-sign Kirk Cousins? And I think that Justin Jefferson's kind of the most important guy to bring back, extending
Mhm.
soon. And he's even talked
Yeah.
about I don't know what they want if they want me kind of thing. But yeah, you need to make sure that you they want you, and in doing that, they might have to not be able to bring back their guy Kirk Cousins. And I think they go J.J. McCarthy from Michigan, a guy that yes, Michigan did not throw the ball a lot, and you're looking at his stats maybe like what's up with that. But
Mhm.
he's a winner. He's a winner. From day one at Michigan, he took over Cade McNamara's spot and kind of took off running. If you look at his game, it's definitely not super polished, but it's something that he's young. He's younger than a lot of these quarterbacks that are up top here. Bo Nix, I believe, is 24. Penix 24. This guy's 21, so he's got some room to grow, especially with Kevin O'Connell, which is a Sean McVay guy. And I kind of view J.J. McCarthy similar to Bo Nix as a McVay type of system guy that they could use as a pocket passer, and he also is able to move a lot. So J.J. McCarthy at 5, and that means that we've got 5 quarterbacks going in the top 11 picks. What do you have for 12 with the Denver Broncos?
Well, Justin, this one's a no-brainer. I think the Broncos and Russell Wilson are pretty much done. This is not going to be a fit no longer. They're gonna keep Sean Payton going for. I don't see them changing coaches for the next couple years in Denver. So we're gonna go quarterback here. Let's go with, and Justin, I wanted this guy in Seattle because I wanted him to stay in his current college hometown area. So, but I'm gonna have to do this. I'm gonna go Michael Penix to Denver. Denver could go different, routes, but man, since Peyton Manning, Justin, the Broncos have had an absolute quarterback carousel is what they call it. And they've had at least like 15, 20 different quarterbacks. We traded for Russell Wilson a year or two ago, gave all our picks to Seattle to get him. Didn't even make the playoffs. Didn't even, probably beat the Chiefs maybe once in 3 years. So, we're done with him and let's go somewhere new. And I think they're going to go with Michael Penix, who feels very gritty to me, Justin. This guy's come back from many different things. He has about, 3 or 4 different season-ending injuries. Man, he can go to Denver. I believe he can ball out. They just need to get him some wide receivers, and I think the Broncos will be okay with Penix.
Yeah, and I think he's arguably the best pocket passer in the draft. And I know I kind of mentioned this guy earlier, but TJ Stroud was the best pocket passer in the draft last year, and he's panned out very well. Sean Payton, he had Drew Brees, who was a very good pocket passer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of bringing in a guy that, that is just known for that. I know he's not super known for running, and he had a great, supporting cast in Washington, which Denver's kind of lacking a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, with Judy's kind of been Sutton, it just, they could afford to bring in another guy, and if they did so with Michael Penix, that could be very, very interesting. I know Sean Payton can draw up a lot of good things. So yeah, all right. So we got Michael Penix, and now what that means, we half of the first round so far has been quarterbacks. So
Mm-hmm.
we think once that run starts, teams are not going to want to lose out on the run. And even though I think that's kind of where the tiers drop off, as you see here, like Michael Pratt and Rattler. I don't think these are day one guys. They might not even be. They might be like third round type of picks, maybe late second. So that our quarterback run has definitely it's happened. We're
Mm-hmm.
moving to the next spot. We got the Raiders. They need a quarterback too. They just miss out on the top guys, and so they got to decide: do they go defense? Do they want to go O line? I think they go O line with Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. Even last year, this guy was regarded as a top 5 to 10 pick. He goes here at 13 to the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
Trent Brown is a free agent, and he was never very great. He actually got traded to New England,
Yeah.
but that didn't pan out. They paid big money to bring him in. That never worked. They bring in Olu Fashanu, who's a day one starter at tackle, and I think that's what they're going to need for whoever their quarterback is heading into this year. But yeah.
Yeah. That Vegas would have to probably go for Kirk Cousins if something like that happened, but they're definitely gonna have to trade up, Justin, to the top 7 to get their franchise quarterback, and they desperately need it.
Yeah. All right. Now to the Saints, who they got a lot of needs too. Wide receiver, edge rusher. Running back. Evan Kamara's getting older. Quarterback, you could argue, even though they just restructured Derek Carr's contract. So yeah, where are you taking the Saints, or where are they going here?
Well, Justin, you just mentioned that we took about 4 to 5 quarterbacks already in these first 13 picks. So I think in these next 4 to 5 picks we have, Justin, there's going to be a lot of different defensive players going off the board. I have the Saints going with the defensive player. I still think with the Saints, they believe a little bit too much in their two quarterbacks with Derek Carr, and I'm not sure if Jameis will stay. So they did just restructure Derek Carr, so I feel like they're probably going to go another year with him. They do have pretty good wide receivers. They have Olave, who I like. So they're going to go defense here. So if I had to pick a defensive player here, Justin, I'm thinking the Saints are going to look a little bit into their secondary here, and I like Kool-Aid McKinstry going pretty early. I did like McKinstry around the 18-19 spot, but I just think at this point of the draft, I think more teams are going to be more aggressive. I think a team like the Saints, they're the type of team that likes to build defensively and just add a bunch of little pieces and see where they go from there. So I do see them taking Kool-Aid out of Alabama with the 14th pick.
That's a big move, and he's kind of been a favorite. I know his name is very interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
But he's kind of a guy that I've heard around the league. It's just his upside is not Jalen Ramsey, but he has just one of the highest floors, or he has the highest floor out of any cornerback in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kool-Aid, with Marshawn Lattimore, it's a pretty good duo there. And so the Saints get a cornerback. I think this is kind of where the cornerback run starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Kool-Aid's going to be backed up by his teammate, Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Another great corner. I will say, Kool-Aid, he's a 3-year starter, I think, since he was a freshman.
Yeah.
But this year, Terrion Arnold became kind of the main cornerback guarding the top wide receivers, whoever Bama played against. And so Terrion Arnold kind of has run up the ranks there. And I think they have Kenny Moore, they have Juju Brents, they need another corner right there. And so they go Terrion Arnold, and now we move to Seattle, who has some pretty good corners. But where do they go?
Justin, with the Seattle Seahawks, they now have another defensive head coach in Mike McDonald. And you know what, Justin? This is going to put a smile on your face. I'm going to go with Edgerrin Cooper out of Texas A&M. This guy, he's flying under the radar just a little bit. I like what I saw from him this year. I mean, 8 sacks, in college for one player is not bad at all, Justin. It's not bad at all. He reminds me, I'm not going to throw out Von Miller. He is an Aggie legend. But, a little bit of a Von Miller feel to him. He can be a nice little edge or linebacker. And I like him in Seattle. They don't really have Justin, Bobby Wagner's nearing the end of his career. They do have a pretty decent secondary. Not too bad of D lineman, but I think they just need one more star, like kind of how the Texans did with Will Anderson. Let's go ahead and get Cooper. He's going to be a pretty solid edge for us.
And I mean, as you said, I saw this guy firsthand at a lot of A&M football games. His senior year, yes, kind of stands out amongst his prior 3 years, but he's always been a guy that it wasn't always straight on the stat sheet. It showed up this season, but he's always just right at point of attack, very quick with his feet, and he's a great pick. I definitely think he's jumping in the first round. I had him kind of edged into the Cowboys down here, and so he comes earlier. Definitely a team in need, and Bobby Wagner's definitely getting older. But as we move to Jacksonville, I think we jump back into the cornerback tree, and I think we go with Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. A very good cornerback, definitely a team that needs cornerback. And I think they're going to want to get in on this little cornerback run before they lose out, especially because that defense it wasn't super as strong as we thought it would be. And I know their free agency period, they're going to try to bring back guys like Josh Allen and stuff. So they're going to work at the at the defensive line and free agency and try to attack corner in the draft. Yeah, now you're up with Cincy.
Okay,
they still need O-line. What do they need?
Yes.
What do they dive into here?
Justin, if I'm Cincinnati, I'm getting offensive lineman the first 3 picks I have of this draft. So we're going to go with best available here. I love my Bama players, and I love my Georgia players, Justin. So it's down to 2 offensive linemen here, J.C. Latham and Amarius Mims. I'm going to always slightly sometimes, I'm a little biased. I love Bama players. So let's go J.C. Latham. Let's see what we can do on this offensive line here. For Cincinnati, like I said, Justin, I mean, I cannot stress this enough for Cincinnati. Whoever's the general manager for the Bengals, the owner, whoever runs it, you guys need offensive linemen in every. Just literally, you guys have a solid defense. You have two great wide receivers. You can do whatever you want with running back. You can find somebody, but when you have Joe Burrow healthy, you need to make sure he's healthy. So you got to get offensive linemen. That's all we need. And I think if the Bengals, Justin, is very interesting. If they have a pretty solid offensive lineman like how the Cowboys were able to build, this team will definitely challenge the Chiefs. Toe to toe, and that's exactly what they need is an lineman, and they need plenty of them, Justin.
Yeah, they definitely, even with, signing Orlando Brown this past offseason, they definitely still need a guy there. And I like that pick, J.C. Latham. And so, yeah, they get O-line. And I think that the Rams, they're going two ways. They're either going corner or they're going O-line. And I think Talise Fuaga has dropped far enough, and they go O-line here with Talise Fuaga.
That's a great pick.
We've seen, the past couple seasons, Stafford's, he doesn't have a ton of time. He's gotten injured a couple times, and I think it's kind of due to this just kind of poor offensive line. They definitely improved this past year, but getting a guy like Talise Fuaga is a great move for them. And now we're on to pick 20, the Steelers. Who they getting?
Man, Justin, I hope the Steelers trade up in the draft and get a guy like Janie Daniels or Bo Nix. However, with the Steelers, they're a quarterback away. The secondary is not bad, but knowing Pittsburgh, they're gonna want to still add to their defense. So looking at their defense to see what linebackers are we might have left, Justin. Let's go with Dallas Turner, another Bama player I've picked today. Let's go ahead, Dallas Turner. Yes, they have TJ Watt. Yes, they have a pretty decent D line, but Steelers are that type of team that are never really going to make a huge splash in the draft. They'll draft whatever they need, and historically they've kind of gone after defense. Justin, that's kind of like the calling card. So I think they take a chance on a guy like Dallas Turner out of Alabama, a solid pick, and I think that should be a nice, partner in crime for TJ Watt to dominate that competitive division.
Definitely, I definitely like Dallas Turner a lot. You can't go wrong with a Bama guy. And also, through looking through it at everything, the top two edge rushers. Top three edge rushers have been Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse. They said Dallas Turner probably has the highest potential of them. He's still, he's a little raw still, but he's learning. And a great move for Pittsburgh to get another guy to, play some defense, especially in a division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. So I like that move. We're on to Miami. They definitely need O-line. They've, Teron Armstead, they signed, I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. He's getting old in the tooth. He gets injured a lot, as we've seen. So they're going to go O-line, and I think they go – where'd he go? We just mentioned him earlier. His name is Armarius Mims out of Georgia. I think he's a huge guy. He's got great talent. I think that the Dolphins are going to want to go that direction and get an O-lineman, which, will change the game for them. Keeping Tua upright, and Amarius Mims. I think he's only going up in the draft this year as we get closer to it. I know the combine is this next week, and so we'll see a lot of interesting numbers. This guy is 6'7". He is huge, and so I got Amarius Mims, and that leads us to Philadelphia, where they got a lot of defensive glaring needs or receiver needs. Let me hear it.
Yeah, Justin, looking at the Philly defense. Now, I believe that Philly still thinks they have a pretty good defense going into next year. There's two things they can do. You got to look at what's going to be going down with like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. These guys are nearing the end of their careers in Philly. I do believe that they did draft a good amount of defensive talent. All those Bulldogs that they drafted in the past 3 years.
Georgia line. That's all Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Justin, I'm going to go a little bit of different direction. I figured this guy might go in the second round, but I think someone's going to take a chance on him, and that's Adonai Mitchell, another former Bulldog turned into Texas Longhorn, but a pretty good season with the Longhorns. He was one of Quinn Ewers' favorite targets. So let's go Adonai Mitchell. When we look at the Eagles, Justin, Howie Mitchell has had a history, though, in the draft going for splashes, whether it's defensively, offensively. I loved many years ago where he had when he picked Jalen Hurts. You know how much of a big fan I am of Jalen Hurts. They got guys like Devonta Smith. And, like we just mentioned, they made splashes for many different Bulldogs. The reigning champion 2-time in the last couple of years, national champion Georgia Bulldogs. Howie went for all of them. So I think he makes a splash and gets the best receiver available at that draft spot.
Yeah, no, A.D. Mitchell is a very great player. If you saw him in that Washington game when they played in the college football playoffs, I just absolutely reliable, big time, catcher. I think that's a great pick for them.
Mm-hmm.
I am interested that you didn't go corner because Slay is getting older.
Yeah.
Bradbury is just awful. But maybe they address that in the second round. And of course, trades aren't involved here. But they could definitely trade back into the first. They have a lot of picks. They have 2 second-round picks. And so, yeah. All right, A.D. Mitchell. That moves us to the Texans, which, gosh, it's between I think they go defense here. I'm on the defensive side. I know they want one more wide receiver. I think they're going to dip their toe in free agency to get that third wide receiver on their team.
Yeah.
But defense, it's coming to a couple of things. They have Steven Nelson. He's a free agent. If they can't bring him back, they might want to go corner. And then also they got a guy like Jonathan Grenard on the defensive line. That if he's a free agent, if they can't bring him back, they're going to need another piece there. And there's a guy that I'm very interested about, and we can bring him in. He's from Texas. His name is Byron Murphy II. Just super physical on the line. I know they got Tavondre Sweat, he's going to be a high second round pick. And so I like Byron Murphy. It'd be between him and Jer'Zhan Newton. Johnny Newton, but I go Byron Murphy. He's kind of jumping up the ranks really fast, and I think it's warranted. And so they get an interior defensive lineman. Yeah, and so now we're on to Dallas.
I love that pick, Justin. I love my Texans going with the guy out of Texas. I love both of those teams. Love the pick for the Cowboys here. This is very interesting, Justin. Here's something about the Cowboys that just stands out to me. They kind of have a little bit of everything. They have good receivers. They have a tight end. They always have a good offensive line, and their defense is pretty good. There's many different ways to do this, but I'm going to make this quick.
Gilmore's a free agent. Tyron Smith's a free agent.
Yeah.
So I got some options to work with.
Let's You know what? Let's go with the defensive player, Justin. I'm gonna go with Chris Braswell. Has he been picked yet? I don't think he has.
No, he hasn't. He's the Bama guy. Yes.
Yeah, another Bama guy. There's gonna be a trend towards the end of this round. I think this draft is gonna have a lot of different themes, Justin. The quarterbacks first, Bama players second. There's going to be a lot of different offensive linemen. So I think Bama. This is one of Saban's last bunch of players being produced. So I feel like he'll probably have another draft class that the players that stay. So, this is one of his last classes that Saban's his coach. So I feel like a lot of NFL teams are going to want to get that. With Bama players, you can't go wrong. There's been many going all across, the NFL. So I think, the Cowboys stick with defense and go with that.
And looking at this guy, Chris Braswell, he is fast. He's huge. Mm-hmm. He's 6'3". He runs a 4.5. We'll see his new updated combine 40 speed, but that's faster than everybody in the top 10 besides Dallas Turner, who was already picked in the draft. Mm-hmm. So I'm very interested in that. They have Lawrence, who's he costs a lot. They're gonna have to pay Micah soon, but they get another edge guy, and hopefully they bring back Gilmore for that for that secondary. But now we're in Green Bay. They need a handful of things. They just cut David, or they're planning on cutting David Bakhtiari. Mm-hmm. So O-line could be a necessity there, which I like a couple guys. They drafted Luke Van Ness last year for the defensive line, so I don't think they go defensive line. But I like that they could go cornerback here, and I think they're going to go Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. This guy was a Senior Bowl star, kind of just like the word on the defensive side of Senior Bowl. You could even get like guys like Roman Wilson and stuff, or there are interviews with many wide receivers that are like, this guy is locked down. Very great player. They have Jair Alexander, but it's kind of, their second corners is still a little bit of a concern. So I think they go Quinyon Mitchell here. I'm interested, though, that O-line could definitely also have been an option. But yeah, now we're moving to Tampa. You're up with Tampa. I guess a couple of things to point out. Their center has retired, Ryan Jansen. Mm-hmm. They got a couple free agents in Levante David, Devin White. Their corners are solid, but yeah, where are you taking them?
I do. Man, this is tricky. So if the Buccaneers do lose Mike Evans, are we going for a wide receiver that late in the draft? Can we wait into the second? I'm gonna go. Also, Justin, you got to look at this. There might be a couple, free agents. There might be people leaving in the defensive side. So for Tampa, they've had those linebackers for a while. You got to figure what's the future of Levante David. They do have Devin White, who has many years ahead of them. I do think they like their defense, Justin. So let's go on alignment. You did mention a center. What centers do they have on your side? Let's see. I'm gonna just we got a center here for the Buccaneers. Who's the best center available?
I like that guy right there, and you see on the screen, Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon.
Let's go ahead and go with that guy. I think the Buccaneers definitely gonna need a center. They're gonna invest in keeping Baker Mayfield, Justin. So I feel like they're gonna want a center to now protect Baker. And I think that they'll definitely address wide receiver. With the potential departure of Mike Evans.
Yeah, I like Jackson Powers Johnson. That's kind of who I've been mocking to them or Green Bay as well. They're a very interesting guy. He's been playing a lot for Oregon, and center is kind of not very deep in this class. And now with Ryan Jensen retiring, they need a new guy there. So Jackson Powers Johnson, I like that move a lot. Now we move to Arizona. You mocked them getting Latu early on in the draft, so they're not going to go Jared Verse, who I think is fallen here, which probably won't have. I don't know. I like Jared Verse a lot, so I think it goes corner or wide receiver. That one's tough for me because they definitely need both. They need corner though, and I know that they addressed one side of the ball, so I think they might address the other side of the ball, and they're going to get Brian Thomas Jr. Out of LSU, who is, I know Malik Neighbors has kind of been the star of it, but Brian Thomas is a bigger guy, a big catch guy, which I like a lot. And they don't really have that in Arizona. They have guys like Rondale and Michael Wilson, not kind of, climbing up the ladder to grab balls. And that's Brian Thomas's game, which I know is just tough because the Bills are kind of been destined to get Brian Thomas because they need wide receiver. But I think they just miss out or they decide to trade up. But Arizona getting them there is big time for them. And if they bring back Hollywood, it's kind of a good cast of wide receivers in that offense. So, yeah, I got Brian Thomas to Arizona. Who do you got Buffalo taking?
So, Justin, before you pick that, you got to think of how these GMs sometimes think. I think Buffalo, before this pick right here, Buffalo was thinking, okay, let's get a defensive player. However, they're thinking the same thing. Oh, man, we might have something going on at wide receiver too. So I think the Bills, they're gonna make a stretch and they're gonna pick Keon Coleman, wide receiver out of Florida State, who's gone too under the radar. I like Xavier Murray and I do like Troy Franklin as the two best receivers left, but I feel like Keon Coleman kind of fits that physical, gritty wide receiver that Josh Allen needs. And I do think that before the Cardinals, like I said, mentioned they were gonna pick someone else or but now that snap, a wide receiver's been picked, that kind of changes what we're thinking. It happens all the time in the draft. I see it every year, Justin. So I do like the Bills going for a wide receiver now because we mentioned who's going to be catching passes from Josh Allen.
Definitely. I think that's a great selection, especially I think they had their eye on Brian Thomas, and Keon Coleman is a similar build type of guy, goes up, grabs balls. Great move there. I like Keon Coleman. Now we move to Detroit, which they need secondary help, and he's right here on my on the board. Cooper DeJean out of Iowa, very talented cornerback. He kind of does it all, can kind of be placed anywhere on the field, and so I like them to go corner here. And he's one of the higher graded corners. That's kind of clearly he's fallen in our mock, and so Detroit takes advantage and brings him in as their next top corner. So, yeah, on to 30, Baltimore.
Justin, I've mentioned this multiple times. Baltimore needs a wide receiver. I'm going in the first round with this. We can build defensively later. Let's go. Has Troy Franklin been picked yet, Justin? I know we picked a handful. Okay, let's go ahead and get Troy Franklin. The Ravens need a wide receiver, Justin. If they can pair him up with Zay Flowers, this could be a pretty nasty combo with Mark Andrews and likely already on the team. It boosts Lamar Jackson up, and it goes good for the Ravens all around. So Troy Franklin, wide receiver out of Oregon, to the 30th pick to the Ravens.
He's got speed that kills. If you look at his tape with Bo Nix, I mean it's back and forth. He's scoring. He's fast. He's shifty. He's quick. He's not a big contested catch guy like the two guys before, like Keon Coleman and Brian Thomas, but definitely a guy that gets a lot of open space. So I like that. Troy Franklin. He was a captain in Oregon, at Oregon, so good move there. Now we're on to San Francisco, And I think the only spot they really need to jump on is tackle, just because Trent Williams is getting up there in age.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two guys. There's Troy Fontenot that I'm thinking about, and Tyler Guyton. And I think Tyler Guyton's more of a tackle. I know Fontenot can play guard as well. So I think Tyler Guyton is a Niner out of Oklahoma. They get that piece to kind of be the successor to Trent Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Close out the first for us with the Chiefs. They got some places to go.
Yeah, I feel like the Chiefs want to add to their already great defense. I guess I'm gonna have to pick another wide receiver, Justin. That doesn't hurt me too much. You gotta believe with the Chiefs. Yes, they just won the Super Bowl, but the regular season was just pretty up and down for Patrick Mahomes. If I had to pick somebody, Andy Reid has a very particular way of getting wide receivers, but let's go ahead and get Xavier Worthy out of Texas. So I picked 2 Texas wide receivers. I think the Chiefs just think, hey, they might end up trading this pick back, to be honest. They're the reigning champs. They don't really need to do anything crazy. But if they were to pick Xavier Worthy, you know how much Andy Reid loves his receivers. I think they make the splash and get Mitchell with the last pick of the first round for the reigning champs, Justin.
It's a great pick. He's got speed for days as well, similar to Troy Franklin. So if they didn't get Franklin, Worthy's kind of a guy that could be up on their board. So yeah, now we're on to the second. The Panthers get their first selection in this draft, and they need it. They need it real bad. I think they definitely need wide receiver help, and they're going to go Lad McConkey out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. He's just a guy that gets open. He's not in the highest tier of, he's not super fast. He's not super big, but he gets open. I don't want to compare him to Cooper Kupp. That seems a little late but they look kind of similar. They just get open. They're not the fastest guys. They're not the biggest guys, but they're good route runners, and they're able to get open. You could see it in his tape at Georgia. And so they get a receiver that to help out Bryce Young, because Bryce Young needs a lot of help with him.
So, Justin, for the Patriots, they're starting new. They have a new defensive head coach. They did go offense in our first round. They did pick, was it Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels, yes, sir.
So I don't think they pick any offense yet. As much as I would love to get a receiver for my new quarterback, I think they want to start new. Let's start this new defense off. I'm Jerron Mayo. I want to start this team with a new defense. Let's go. Have Jeremiah Trotter Jr. been picked?
The linebacker. No, he has not.
No. So Jeremiah Trotter at the University of Clemson. I think this guy's flying under the radar. He was pretty good. He had some pretty great games this year. I do like him in the second round, though. He could be a great sneaky pick. Whoever gets him, I think a team like the Patriots would go for him if, he falls down to him. So definitely like Trotter for the Patriots.
Yeah, Trotter, he's a very good. And in this draft too, it's kind of depleted at linebacker. There's not a ton of great options to go for.
Yeah.
And so they get in on Trotter, try to get him before they lose out on the higher tiered players at linebacker. All right, so now we're in at Arizona. They've gotten Latu, and they went Brian Thomas. So they got to go another way, and I think they continue. Now they're going to jump back to offense. They're going to get this guy out of Washington, Troy Fontenot, a super huge guy. He can play, all around the offensive line. And just if you watch those games, Penix had a ton of time to get the ball out, and that's due to these guys here. Troy Fontenot is 6'4", and I think he's a very great player, very great pass protector. So good for Kyler, and they get an O lineman there. So yeah, on to Washington, and it's you.
Okay, so for the Washington Commanders here, we had them taking Drake May, correct?
Yep, Drake May was
okay.
their
I'm
first
trying to
pick.
remember. So they're probably going to go linebacker here with Dan Quinn, who has a big history. Let's see. Let's go. I like what I already have on D-line. I don't really think. Let's go.
You sure there? With a guy rid of Chase Young and Sweat, they could go with a guy like Jared Verse in the first.
I do think they go with Jared Verse. Let's go ahead and go with Jared Verse. I was looking at a linebacker or corner, but let's go with Jared Verse. I cannot believe, Justin, he's fallen to the second. I don't think he goes in the second. I think he probably goes like 25. But like I said, many trades will affect that and how Jared Verse goes. But yes, I like Jared Verse in Washington as a second round pick. That's a steal.
I think that's a great pick. He's kind of they said he's kind of the most day one ready type of guy, and he seems like a Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn would love to have him on the defense. And so that's a great. I mean, they traded away Chase Young, they traded away Montez Sweat. They still got interior D line guys, but they need an edge rusher, and so they get Jared Verse. Now we're on to the Chargers, who went Marvin Harrison with their first pick. I think they
Nice.
continue to work on this offensive line, and they get Graham Barton out of Duke. Kind of, I think, will be the last piece of this offensive line
Yeah.
to make them, a good offense and keep Justin Herbert up. I will say Graham Barton, he played some center as well, and now with Corey Lindsey planning on retiring, they're going to need a center. And so they bring in Graham Barton. He can kind of play everywhere on the offensive line. He played snaps at guard as well as center and some tackle as well. So I think center might be where he's destined to go. And I think that it'd be a great pick for the Chargers. So, yeah. All right, who you got in Tennessee? Their first
Okay.
pick was Roma Dunze
hmm
out of Washington. So, who do they go now?
Well, Justin, we have our first running back off the board. This is going to be a little bit of a spicy take. Now, I love Jonathan Brooks out of the University of Texas. You know how much I love my Longhorns, Justin. But he tore his ACL in one of the last games of the year. So you got to have some questions going. So, and I love Blake Corum, but this is a hot take. You look at the Titans, they're looking for, they do have Tajay Spears. They do want to use him, but let's get a little bit more of a power back. And let's go Trey Benson out of Florida State. I know this is very just out of nowhere, kind of random, but I feel like, Derrick Henry's gone. They do believe they have their franchise quarterback. I think they're going to keep Hopkins. They could go defense here, but let's just get another running back. Let's get this offense going. Under Callahan, who did so great with, Joe Mixon. And so going ahead with Trey Benson, I'm very curious to see, though, where Blake Corum gets picked at. And probably this round, I believe, though.
He'll be here. I think he'll be late second, kind of
Yeah.
maybe late mid third, kind of be the latest.
Mm-hmm.
He's played at such a high level everywhere. That's why I like Blake Corum, and I like Trey Benson a lot too. He didn't get a super ton of snaps, but if you look at his tape, he's a 3-down back. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Leonard Fournette, just kind of like he's shifty, but he's still big and like kind of he's
Yeah.
got a build to him. I like Trey Benson a lot, and he could be a very I think he'll take over Tajay Spears, and I think they both they'll complement each other. So Tennessee goes Trey Benson. Now we're on to the Giants. They pick Joe Alt with their first pick. They need wide receiver, but I'm not seeing a lot of wide receivers right here off the top. And so I think that they're going to attack the interior defensive line here with going Jerzan Johnny Newton out of Illinois. He's fallen a lot too. I think he'll be a first round pick. I had him close with the Texans pick. I think he could go to Detroit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they picked Byron Murphy, the Texans, in our mock. So I say Jerzon Newton is a Giant. They now have both sides of the ball there. They got Joe Alt, and now they got Jerzon Newton to attack each other, and I think that's a great pick there. Now we're back to Washington. You get to pick for them, what is it, a third time now?
Mm-hmm.
They went Drake May, and we just went with Jared Verse. So where do they attack now? They got both sides of the ball.
I think they're going to still attack defensively. When you look at that secondary, is very poor. Let's add a safety. So let's go Tyler Nubin out of the University of Minnesota. I feel like Washington's really. I have a feeling they're going to really pay attention too much to the offense this offseason. I feel like they're going to want to build around defense. Dan Quinn, it's Washington. It's 80. It's gritty. Let's win our division by building a great defense. You look at what the Chiefs just did, Justin. I know they have a great franchise quarterback, but they did draft a lot of their great pieces to their defense this year through the draft in the past 3 years. We love the way the Chiefs did it. So I feel like, there has to be sort of a trend going forward. Let's pick a bunch of defensive players. And, the Commanders have picked 3 times already within the first 2 rounds. So I got to believe they're going to build on their defense after getting their franchise quarterback.
Definitely. I think it's definitely a great move. And I'm looking here just for Green Bay's sake. They went Quinyon Mitchell with our first pick there, and now they're back on the clock. So they got corner. The thing is, like, I see Peyton Wilson here. He just gets injured a lot. He reminds me of like a Leighton Vander Esch, but he's just injured a lot. I don't think they're going to want to dive in there. I spoke about David Bakhtiari, and I think that's what's going to lead me to this pick here with Jordan Morgan out of Arizona. David Bakhtiari is not on the team anymore. They're going to need a tackle to replace him, and so they go Jordan Morgan to continue to add to the youngest team in the NFL. But yeah, all right, now we're back to Minnesota. I think they're going J.J. McCarthy in the first to get their new franchise quarterback. Where do they go in the second?
Yeah, Justin, when we look at the Vikings, they're going to need a linebacker. They did get rid of Eric Kendricks, I believe, not that long ago, and Anthony Barr a few years back. So I feel like they're needing a little bit of some linebacker help. Trotter just got picked. Looking down the line, let's go ahead and go with Junior Colson out of the reigning champions, Michigan Wolverines. You know, this guy's flying a little bit under the radar. When you look at that Michigan defense, Justin, this year, or even in the past couple years, you know, they were never really like so dominant. They're just very solid defense that can get you stops as long as the offense can put up some points. So, you know, I'm surprised that, you know, kind of like the LSU Tigers did a couple years ago with that Joe Burrow class. You know, they had some great defensive players out of that reigning championship team. So I feel like for this defense, for the Wolverines, I feel like there's a couple of defensive players that are on this draft that, you know, they could go on the radar and could be good late round picks and, you know, some gems that we can find here through Michigan, Justin.
They definitely attack linebacker, and that's a good spot. Yeah, Eric Kendricks left last year. I'm interested. They could go edge with if they don't re-sign Danielle Hunter. But yeah, all right. They go Junior Colson. That leads us to Atlanta, which I think they need. They attacked quarterback. They got Bo Nix in the first. I think they attack edge this
Mhm.
round, and they get a guy and Darius Robinson, who was another Senior Bowl star. He's come on. He's a big guy, and he's been very physical and very active. And if you look last year, they were very like their defense was very in a I think like a contain mode. They didn't have a guy on the edge to kind of quicken quarterbacks throws. They have Calais Campbell as an interior D lineman, but not a strong edge presence. And I think they go
Mhm.
Darius Robinson here. Who did the Raiders go in the first round? They went O line. They went with Olu Fashanu. But who do they attack here in the second?
Well, Justin, I believe at some point the Raiders are going to have to get something in the quarterback category. So let's take a chance on a guy whose team was 13-0 and was a Heisman candidate, but got hurt. And let's go with Jordan Travis out of Florida State. You know, with the Raiders, they're a quarterback away from being one of the most flashiest teams in the league. You know, I feel like in that beautiful stadium already in Vegas, you know, they have Devontae Adams, who has a good amount, couple years. They have Josh Jacobs. You know, I love what I saw out of Jacoby Myers this year. If they can just add talent and just keep that team going, I love Antonio Pierce as the head coach. We'll wait on Jordan Travis. We'll draft him. We'll be patient with him. If he's not going to be able to go for this year, we can always forego his rookie year and have him start his second year. I'm willing to be patient with that. We love that what we saw to Jordan Travis. So let's take the chance on him. You know, we're not overselling. I don't believe once he's healthy, he's going to be a great quarterback. So Jordan Travis out of Florida State to the Raiders.
He's definitely a high potential pick. We saw it. He was a Heisman candidate before he got injured. It's very important that you bring up he might not be ready for the season start, but I think he's a guy that he has a lot of upside, and hopefully the right coach can build up on him and
Mhm.
make him a good star. All right, now we're back to New Orleans. I'm trying to remember who they picked in the first. We got Kool-Aid, so they
Mhm.
attack corner, and I think they continue on that defensive stretch. They
Mhm.
need an edge rusher with Cam Jordan getting older. I think they go Chop Robinson out of Penn State. He's a guy that was never super. He's not super. You don't see it on the box score as much, but he's just a guy that always makes a difference and makes changes the game. In Penn State, I've seen a lot of reports of him going in the late first as well. So he's kind of in that range. Might fall a little. I know he's a little injured this past year, but I like Chop Robinson to New Orleans in a trade they got from Denver. And so, yeah, now we're on to the Colts. They went corner in the first round with Terrion Arnold. Where do they go now in the second?
Justin, I believe now when you look at the Colts, they have a franchise quarterback and a franchise running back. So let's add some pieces to protect that. So let's go with Jordan Morgan. I'm not sure he has been picked. I don't think he has on my list.
I did.
If we,
I got him for Green Bay earlier on.
Green Bay. Okay. I knew it was one of those two. So let's go Tyler Guyton out of the University of Oklahoma. Now, I
I got.
believe you got him too?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, snap. Okay, hold on. Let me go down my list. We're going to
There's
need an
guys
offensive.
like Kingsley and Kieran, BYU and a Yale guy. Blake Fisher, another Notre Dame guy. Patrick Paul out
Let's
of Houston.
You have Troy Fatanu too. He got picked, right?
Yeah, he got
Tyler
picked.
Guyton. Let's see. Let me see. Let me see. We do need to
That's
go.
They
Let's
definitely need.
go. Let's go Kingsley Salmatia out of BYU. Let's
Who I
go. Let's
what's his name?
Yeah, I had to sort out which lineman the best available. I do like Zach Zinter just because he was out of Michigan, but I do think he falls into the third round. But yeah, I think the Colts definitely are going to address a lot of offensive line issues to get that team going.
All right, that's a good pick. I do definitely think O lineman is in the books for them. Now we're back to the Giants. They picked Joe Alt and Jerzon Newton. I think they go back to defense and they go with this guy Ennis Rakestraw, who is just he's definitely like a high coverage back. He's glued to the wide receiver. I know a con that people are going to point out for this guy is he only had one interception in his entire college career, which is
Yeah.
kind of it's an interesting thing. You would think like what, but he has a very high pass coverage grade, a deflection guy, and just a lockdown corner. I think he's a great pick here for the Giants. And now we're back to the Jags. You're up. They went corner. They went Nate Wiggins in the first. Where do they go now?
So definitely the Jags are going to address offensive line. I feel like the offense didn't really have a great second half of the season. I think part of it was because Trevor Lawrence didn't have enough time to throw the ball. It was just the offense was very dysfunctional, Justin. So I think we're going to go offensive lineman. There's many good choices here. I think they need a guard. So I'm going to go Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. They're going to need offensive line bad here. And I think this is the good time around where a bunch of these teams that have pretty decent quarterbacks, they're just going to start swinging at offensive linemen, getting tackles, guard, center. And I feel like, the Jags are one of those teams that are going to need to, make that move as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, and Cooper Beebe has been going up a lot of draft boards. Very talented prospect, might be a little raw, but definitely someone that could be a good placement for the Jags. Now we move to Cincinnati. We had them go with J.C. Latham out of Alabama. And if you look at their offense, they just franchise tag T. Higgins. But I think they go tight end here because all their tight ends are actually free agents. Drew Sample, Irv Smith, and they go here with the Texas guy, Jatavion Sanders. As you probably know, the Texas guy, he plays very well, very good tight end. Brock Bowers obviously off the board, so they go with the second best guy they could get in Jatavion Sanders. And that leads us back to Philadelphia with the pick here. They picked A.D. Mitchell in the first round, the wide receiver. Who do they get with their second pick?
Well, Justin, since Jason Kelsey might be retiring and Philly loves their Bulldogs, I have the perfect person for them. Let's go Cedric Van Fran out of Georgia, center. This guy can be very physical. He's been, been around for a little bit, and he's going to be pretty good. He's flying under the radar. I love my Bulldogs, and so does Philadelphia. And I feel like now that Jason Kelsey is going to probably be gone, they want to, add more to the offensive lineman, get somebody that can have Jalen Hurts' back when they do run the tush push if it doesn't get banned.
Yeah, no, I like that. They definitely with Jason Kelsey retiring, they're getting a big guy, a 3'10", 6'4" guy. Definitely a great pick there. We back to the Rams. They went. Who did they go in the first round? I think they went to Talise Fuaga, the O lineman. Now they're back on the clock. I think they might address corner. Let me look what they got here. Right here, this guy. I think he's the last guy too in like that tier of second round corners. They get a guy here, TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. I know that this past year they impressed, and I think that's due maybe to some Raheem Morris coaching, but their defense kind of came back on after kind of being kind of middle of the pack the last couple of years. And so they kind of add some beef to that cornerback and secondary because there were some veterans and some young guys in there. They get another good guy in the second with TJ Tampa. And now you're back with Pittsburgh. Who do they go here in the second round? We saw that they went. I think they went Dallas Turner, the edge rusher, in the first. Who are they getting in the second?
Well, Justin, it does me honor to draft a Cougar at the University of Houston. Let's go Patrick Paul, offensive lineman. When you look at the Steelers, we think that they're just going to go another year with Kenny Pickett. So might as well get an offensive lineman to, get that run game going now under Arthur Smith.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. I think Patrick Paul is a very, very good pick, someone that's going to be very useful headed into the season. All right, now we're at the Dolphins. They went O-line in the first. And now that I'm trying to look at where they could go now in the second. They could go wide. I could see them going wide receiver, trying to get a third guy, maybe a guy like Ricky Pearsall. But I
Mhm.
think that they go a different route. I think they go linebacker with Jalen Phillips, tearing his Achilles, and Andrew Van Ginkel is a free agent. They go Peyton Wilson out of NC State to kind of add to that linebacker room. Now we're back with Philly. They just picked Cedric Van Pran, the center, and they went A.D. Mitchell. It's two offensive guys. Do they attack the defense? What do they do
Mhm.
for Philadelphia?
Absolutely, Justin. Looking at the Eagles, they're definitely going to look at the safety position. And I'm getting a couple people here, but I do like. I want to pick another Bulldog for the Eagles, but let's keep it a little bit original. Let's go Cameron Kinchins out of the University of Miami, out of the U.
Yes.
And I feel
That's
like they're definitely going to need to address. I do think maybe they might pick a Bulldog. Howie. That's the way he picks. But let's go with Kinchins. He could be good, flying under the radar.
Yeah, I like Cam Kitchens a lot. I definitely watched him this past year a bit, especially when A&M played them.
Mm-hmm.
So Cam Kitchens is a great pick. They definitely need some safety help with Kevin Byard possibly being a cap casualty. So yeah, all right, Cleveland. We're to Cleveland. This is their first pick in the draft that they get to pick for this year. They got some needs just about it everywhere. I think they go wide receiver.
Yeah.
Just because it's Amari and Elijah Moore, it's not super deep receiver room. They get Roman Wilson out of Michigan. I was kind of juggling between him and a guy like Jermaine Burton, but they have a guy like that, or at least they're hoping to have a guy like that because they already have Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee this past year. So they get a guy like Roman Wilson who has also been a Senior Bowl star, and guys that have come out of the Senior Bowl that have had really good Senior Bowl weeks. They've been very good NFL players this far. So I like Roman Wilson as a good pick for the Browns. Who do the Cowboys get with this pick here?
Yeah, Justin, when you look at the Cowboys, we're not really sure what they want to do as far as running back. I don't think Tony Pollard stays. So let's go ahead and go with Jonathan Brooks out of the University of Texas. This is a good spot for him. He is one of the top running backs. He is hurt, and running backs do start going around this time of draft, Justin. Let's go ahead and get Jonathan Brooks. We do have Dawdle. We don't know if he's a star yet. We don't know what he can do for our team. Deuce Vaughn isn't bad, but he's a little bit more of a speed back. So, if we can get, Derrick Henry, but I would still also like Jonathan Brooks to, share with Derrick Henry if that were to happen. But let's get a running back in Dallas. Keep, the guy in state and Jonathan Brooks.
I honestly, that might be my favorite pick I've seen so far. I know he's coming off the injury,
Mm-hmm.
but Dallas needs running back, and I know in our running back predictions episode, at least I didn't foresee any of the top free agent running backs going to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're definitely going to need to bolster up that room. And Brooks, to me, is the best running back in this class.
Mm-hmm.
It's the injury that has kind of been his concern that happened a little later on in the season. But, I mean, Texas is just pumping out good running backs. They had Bijan last year. They get Jonathan Brooks this year. And Roshan Johnson in Chicago. So
Yeah.
I like Jonathan Brooks. We're back to Green Bay. They had who did they get in the second? We got Jordan Morgan, and they went corner in the first. And so I think they're going to go – dang, this is close. But I think they're going to go with safety and a guy like Jaden Hicks out of Washington State. He's been just highly regarded in the draft process so far. I know guys like Javon Bullard here, the Georgia Bulldog. It's hard to pick against big school named guys, but a guy like Jaden Hicks played very well in college this past year, and so I like him to the Packers. Now we're back to Tampa Bay. Who do they decide to select?
So, Justin, I was kind of wondering when this player was going to get picked. I'm looking at Cage Stover. Now, it has him here at linebacker. I'm not sure if he's a tight end now.
He's a tight end, yeah.
He's a tight end. They have him here at linebacker. I'm not sure why. Maybe this might be a typo. But I do think that with the Buccaneers, they're going to lose Mike Evans. And Cade Otton, he's had some good games. Not really. He had Tom Brady for a couple years. And then he was all right with Baker. I do think now that the Buccaneers offensively, they're going to need to add another guy that Baker's going to need to go to. Get Cade Stover out of Ohio State. Get him a nice little franchise tight end. I think that's a great pick for Tampa.
That's a very interesting pick. They go with Cade Stover out of Ohio State. Very good tight end. I'm trying to look at my grades real quick in my comparisons. I had Cade Stover. Who did I compare him to? I was very interested. A guy like I mean, this is not a great. You wouldn't love it, but Gerald Everett. He kind of has that similar
Yeah.
game. Very good after the catch tight end. And he's got good speed and agility. So yeah, I like Cade Stover. Now we're back to the Texans. I had them picking Byron Murphy in the first, the defensive interior defensive lineman. And in this pick, I have them going Kamari Lassiter. Now I have this happening in the case that Steve Nelson is not re-signed to Houston. They kind of pour their money into a guy like Saquon or Mike Evans and stuff like that, and so they don't bring a guy like Steve Nelson back. They get Kamari Lassiter to tag team with Derek Stingley, and that leads us to Buffalo. Who did the Buffalo Bills pick? They went Keon Coleman. You had them pick Keon Coleman in the first. Who's they getting in the second?
So Justin, I think Buffalo at this point in the draft is going to go linebacker. Has Peyton Wilson been picked? I want to make sure I got him off my list.
He did. I had him going to
Okay,
the Dolphins earlier.
so it's rather linebacker. Let's see what we got left on the D line. I think it's going to be D line or linebacker. Let's go. Chop Robinson. Has he been picked?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I like Adisa Isaac, Jonah Ellis. If they go interior, they got a guy like Chris Jenkins.
I like Jonah Ellis out of Utah. Let's go ahead and get him. I think Buffalo is really going to need to add some key pieces to that defense. You know, they have potential to be great, Justin. They just can't make stops when's needed. I think part of that is the pressure. They lack pressure. They hardly could get to Mahomes. So let's get somebody on the edge, potentially Jonah Ellis out of Utah.
I like that because I mean, well, they had Von Miller there, but he's getting old.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a new, refreshing piece on the defensive line. They get Jonah Ellis out of Utah. Now looking, I'm just checking real quick. We're back with Detroit. They got Cooper DeJean in the first. Do they go with an offensive piece here? I know Josh Reynolds is a free agent, so Jermaine Burton's a kind of an interesting play there. They have C.J. Gardner Johnson. But I think they might attack edge just because they got Hutchinson, but they don't really have that counterpiece. And then they go Adisa Isaac out of Penn State.
Ooh. Yep.
I think that's a good pick for them. They kind of are making that the last touches to the defense. Who does Baltimore take in the second?
Yeah, so here Baltimore's still going to get somebody here in the secondary. They do have a pretty solid secondary, but I think they're more solid in the linebacker position. You got to believe they're going to go defense more than offense in this draft. If I had to pick, I'm going to say they're going to go a corner, and you did have TJ Tampa being picked. So let's go. Has Kalen King
Yes.
been picked? He has?
No, he's available. The guy at Penn State.
Yeah, Kalen King out of Penn State. I think, the Ravens are going to address a little bit of a need for corners. You know how much they love to add to their defense in the draft. So I think they'd go Kalen King here.
It's not a bad pick. I know he struggled a little in the Senior Bowl a couple weeks ago, but it's still a very high draft pick prospect. And so, yeah, okay, they go corner. The Niners, they went offensive line in the first. Looking at who they could go in the second, I know a guy like Jawan Jennings on their team in this past Super Bowl is a free agent. So could they attack wide receiver? I could see it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have them go with wide receiver and Ricky Pearsall out of Florida.
I love it.
He's you probably know the fans looking at that catch he had this past year, arguably the best catch of the year. That one-hander. It was against I don't remember the school they were playing against, but just a big catch, and that's just kind of a highlight of what he's known to do. He's not the super big wide receiver, but a guy that works in the intermediary and can be a really good piece for them. Especially, I mean, I don't think anything's going to happen with Brandon Ayuk, but if he kind of is trying to edge his way out of San Francisco, they could go for wide receiver, and they go Ricky Pearsall. All right, close out our draft with the last pick, the Chiefs. They went Xavier Worthy in the first. Who do they go in the second?
Man, with the Chiefs, they'll probably just add more to their defense. So they do have McDuffie and let's see, Sneed. I'm pretty sure they'll bring Sneed back. But I
Yeah,
do
bro.
think they're going to add a little bit more to their D line. They do have a all-star defensive tackle. Let's get another edge. Like I said, the Chiefs now are in their era where they're just building defense to help Patrick Mahomes out. So let's go Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA.
Gabe Murphy.
Another edge. I know it's a little bit of a reach at this point, but the Chiefs, they don't care. They just won the Super Bowl. Let's add more to our defense. Let's get a defense that we know Patrick Mahomes, can score for and, create something great in Kansas City than it already is.
They definitely. I think that's an interesting point. I think they are going to attack edge. But yeah, that's not a bad pick right there. I do like Braylon Trice out of Washington as well. But yes, edge is a good pick. And that caps out our draft. Check it back. There's a lot of picks we made. Two full rounds. And this is our first mock, one of multiple that we're going to put out. Big names like Caleb Williams, Drake May. We had 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12 picks. Very quarterback heavy in the first round. Wide receivers were going pretty plenty. Some big changes. I mean, if we look at it now retrospectively, A.D. Mitchell to the Eagles, Marvin Harrison to the Chargers. We had Brock Bowers to the Jets. Some big names. Troy Franklin goes to Baltimore. Keon Coleman goes to Buffalo. Brian Thomas to Arizona. All would be. I mean, that's what it comes down to. A lot of this draft in picking rookies to really break out. It's where they land. And so that's what we're here to do. We're trying to find, the best spots and just like most, realistic and likely spots for each team and each player. So yeah, that caps out our draft. It was our second episode this week. We hope you guys really enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed it, Dwayne Nation. It's been super fun. I've been, excited all the way up to this weekend to get it done. I hope you guys watch it. And, hopefully we get it right. And then, next week we got a wide receiver episode, which is going to be huge. Super excited about that. Wide receiver predictions, along with wide receiver performance reviews. But yeah, that caps out our episode. Thank you, Dwayne Nation, and Janoah, send us out.
Yo, Dwee Nation. I love doing this mock draft. This is only one of a few that we're going to do. I can't wait for a couple weeks where we can probably do another one. And hey, hopefully, Justin, we can make some results that we can look back at the draft and say, wow, we were right about that. So, Dwee Nation, stick with us. It's going to be an exciting offseason, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Peace.